come back again for a few minutes by talking about Masa Amini. As you know, Masa Amini, she got shot by the morality, the morality police. If I saying it correct, uh, in September 16, 2022, by the morality police, of course, and have lied about that she was suffering of some kind of headache or some kind of sickness or whatsoever they excuse were, but the truth were that they beaten her into death. Her family, on the other hands, um, took the action by confront those police, and there was nothing they could do except for go to the authority, of course, and report them, but nothing were doing it. Suddenly, as we know, many women suspected those things because all of those prisoners, of those who actually were taken to the custody of the morality police, were telling how hellish it was in all those years. And as I know, those young people who have been taken for many times by the morality police, they are not the only one. There are several of the women who have been taken by the morality police. And as I remember Iran, the time when it was taken, many kind of law about hijab and all those excuse of the clothes to cover women's body, just because they don't want to attract any men or any kind of other kind of behavior, whatever standing in Quran and so on. And yeah, it is a sadness. Now I ain't going to tell my religion at all, but I am supporting the one who suffer, and every woman have been suffer enough. But let me tell you the reason to why I also talking about it. Think again. Early in the time, as I remember, since many of the Eastern people complain about the Western, let me give you a valuable information. The women from the West didn't exactly get the rights. It was the government who actually were the morality in the past by telling how women should looks like. You maybe are familiar with that submission to men. But here's the thing as the Eastern people missing. The Western women was never told by the government. They break the law because they were tired of the men in the Western and the government in the Western, because each and any of those laws they have broke for a long time because of all this shit. You may be wonder, why do women dress as they want? Simple, because they choose it for themselves for all those 40 years, the time when the movement came in, the time when women could spoke for themselves. Because of all those things, I mean, submit to a religion who's saying how women should be. That's too much in this case. And religion itself, like Christianity, who actually saying a lot of things without us saying the truth. I mean, for God's sake, we have a lot of men who are literally saying a lot of things, and that's a lie. But as I saying to you all who are living in the Eastern, please make sure that you can fight and make sure that you can break out all of this kind of oppression. Do not let anybody to press you down because I know that Ines, you're going to fix your life. Do not give up. I understand and I support you and I hope you will succeed. I will talk more about that. Give me a minute. Folks, I'm sorry if I going to vanish for a while. I'm going to help my mother for a while, but you're going to listen to someone saying, I don't know. I was thinking you were maybe going to hear from my own computer. Perhaps he could explain anything. Give me a minute.
Passed by Congress June 4, 1919, and ratified on August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. The 19th Amendment legally guarantees American women the right to vote. Achieving this milestone required a lengthy and difficult struggle. Victory took decades of agitation and protest. Beginning in the mid-19th century, several generations of woman suffrage supporters lectured, wrote, marched, lobbied, and practiced civil disobedience to achieve what many Americans considered a radical change of the Constitution. Few early supporters lived to see final victory in 1920. Beginning in the 1800s, women organized, petitioned, and picketed to win the right to vote. But it took them decades to accomplish their purpose. Between 1878, when the amendment was first introduced in Congress, and August 18, 1920, when it was ratified, champions of voting rights for women worked tirelessly, but strategies for achieving the goal varied. Some pursued a strategy of passing suffrage acts in each state. 9 Western states adopted woman suffrage legislation by 1912. Others challenged male-only voting laws in the courts. Some suffragists used more confrontational tactics such as picketing, silent vigils, and hunger strikes. Often supporters met fierce resistance. Opponents heckled, jailed, and sometimes physically abused them. By 1916, almost all of the major suffrage organizations were united behind the goal of a constitutional amendment. When New York adopted woman suffrage in 1917 and President Wilson changed his position to support an amendment in 1918, the political balance began to shift. On May 21, 1919, the House of Representatives passed the amendment, and 2 weeks later, the Senate followed. When Tennessee became the 36th state to ratify the amendment on August 18, 1920, the amendment passed its final hurdle of obtaining the agreement of 3/4 of the states. Secretary of State Bainbridge Colby certified the ratification on August 26, 1920. Changing the face of the American electorate forever. The campaign for woman suffrage was long, difficult, and sometimes dramatic, yet ratification did not ensure full enfranchisement. Decades of struggle to include African Americans and other minority women in the promise of voting rights remained. Many women remained unable to vote long into the 20th century because of discriminatory state voting laws.
And there you have it, people. And yeah, I'm sorry if I had to using a computer to speak for me, a voice on other hands. Since I always vanish when someone call me in the family, that's how it works. I can't ignore. Even if I'm making a YouTube channel, YouTube clip or whatsoever. But as I said, because that's exactly what we have in the Constitution today. I mean, it's different. I don't say you have to be just like America or just like Europe or just like Africa or just like Australia or just like South America whatsoever. No. The point is that you can still choose whatever you want to be. But let me give you something I know exactly. The only problem we have here in the rest of the world, if I may say it, we all facing a lot of shit too, as usual. Okay? Or maybe a man or guy whatsoever, you may be here speaking whatsoever. But that's not the seller point. The seller point I try to give you at least is the opportunity to stay up and stand up for yourself as well. But you should actually go through your own sons in this case to learn them to understand the woman self. Something as your grandpa or your father have um, failed to understand about women, because most of the men were already taught how they should actually treat women in the past. And even if we understand for the certain thing, I mean, it doesn't matter what stands in the Quran or Bible or Torah, that's nothing compared to the human life. I mean, there is no way God would actually accept everything by saying, well, I don't want to see everybody suffer. That means you have to make sure that both men and women suffer equally. But he can't favor just one gender by saying, okay, I lift up your men, but you women should suffer. That doesn't sound like God himself. In order to make sure that everybody suffer equally, God mean that each and anyone should actually obey him, but not because of the Quran. No, that was Muhammad's work. What God wants in this case, that everybody worship him. Okay, don't say him in this case. It's enough with God, not in the gender specific thing. But what I'm trying to say is also, because of all this chaos, as I try to say, as many of those men who fail to understand how women feel is also because of whatever they have been teaching for generations, to ignore their mental health and all of this kind of important thing about the humankind whatsoever, the gender self too. But here's the thing, the stereotype of the gender by never talking about the mental health or whatsoever. As we know exactly from the women's stance, they don't care about nations. Many of them care about freedom. But over the years, many women who have submit to their husband. It have always been about war. It have always been about nations. It have always been about everything who doesn't count in to the basic cycle of the life. And yeah, don't ask me what do I mean with that. You will figure out that later. But here's the thing, as you need to learn the boys to understand the girls, uh, the sister on the hands, that they have to think equal. Whatever you have struggled in your life, your daughter should never suffer the same way as you have suffered. And that's the thing I want to at least teach. But here's the thing, what's more important. In order to make sure that both boys and girls shall become equal, here's the thing. When it comes to toys, make sure that both boys and girls have the same toys who are equal for each and anyone. distribute whatsoever what is for boys and what so are for girls. Stop with that. Think about what is for both. That's number one when they come to children. Number two is treat them both equally. Learn them about to love each other and not hate each other. That's number two. Number three, talk about the mental health between each and anyone, whether they are men or women, boys or girls. And number four, make sure that each and anyone understand right and wrong, that no one shall actually hurt each other no matter what. And number five, the important thing, when they become teenagers, each and any of them must learn also what is different between each and anyone who will suffer the mental health forever. And yeah, I say, even if boys grow up, they have to learn that sometimes feelings is good to share, or you will still keep all those issues for yourself and become the troublemaker in the past. Something as many Americans have failed when it comes to boys, in this case. But that's not the seller point. The seller point is both boys and girls, when they reach the teenagehood, the mental health will accelerate, of course, and that's something you're all going to talk about to find solution. The president of yours will not doing that. He is still into the religious idea that boys doesn't have to go through all these things. So please, I tell you, talk with the boys about the idea. Talk with them with both logic and reason. That's important, no matter what. And yes, here comes the thing about sexism, harassment, and all of it. Please, that's the important thing you have to learn your boys to never commit at all, especially when it comes to rape. Make sure that each and any of them will learn about the wrongdoing. And I know that God knows exactly that this is the thing. We shall actually understand the point. No matter if we are boys or girls, no one shall hurt someone no matter what. And the person itself have no right to touch a woman's body without her uh, uh, without her permission. I'm sorry for that. Uh, but that's not the only thing. Even girls should also learn that part, that they don't have right to touch someone's body without their permission too, as well. So this is an equal standard. That no one shall touch each other without their permissions as well. But here's the thing. Also make sure that no girl shall never marry somebody who are much more older than that person itself. And each and anyone shall actually fall in love with someone they love, but they have to understand between logic, reason, and understanding about love and hate and all of this kind of thing, what is more important. And I know that all your mothers will succeed, but it take time, and especially when government start to playing with you, which I understand it is a hard thing. So don't give up, or you will be back there we had in the time of the 60s. I used to hear from my own grandma how it was hard for her to live in this poison life of her, which I see that you still live in. It is really hard, I understand. And that's exactly what my grandma once learned me about between right and wrong, and I admire her so much as I can remember. Yeah, she still talk about that, and I'm happy that she does. Because if she didn't do it, I would be wild as a man or boy whatsoever. I would actually become something I don't want to learn about later when I grow up. I mean, okay, I'm 34, but that's not the seller point. The seller point is so long I can actually keep and keeping me in the responsibility, and I shall never cause any problem at all from beginning. Uh, and even in the workplace, as I want to tell you, is a really important thing. As we know, in few worlds, of course, there's a lot of things when it comes to men and women everywhere. There will always be a toxic place. What we failed in the world is because we allowed all those elites and those costume freaks and what was the third again? The capitalism taking over our government, kind of. Except that even if they haven't taken over it immediately, but the problem is when it comes to few parties, few of them are actually bonded with the capitalism who literally have the parties as the butt kisser or the butt licker. And that's the worst part. We allow the capitalism to ruin our lives. And the only thing we could do, and as I said, as a warning for you, because you maybe will have the possibility to break that part, make sure when it comes to the hospital, it will be run by a scientist, no matter if there's a male or female, or somebody who are logic enough to be a boss there. Never allow a business person to ever take over the hospital and giving a medicine whatsoever. We don't know if that person going to make a promise or whatsoever. So this is a warning I telling you. So yeah, let someone who have no attention about money and only care about the human health be allowed to be the boss over the hospital. That's the important thing. And when it comes to the politics, make sure you never have connection with elites whatsoever. You shall never submit to the elites. The elites is the one who should actually submit to you because you are the one who making the work. And do not take any taxes or money for yourself. Share it with some people who need it the most. And that's all I can say. I'm not the best person to trust exactly, but you will maybe hear a lot of voices from every woman everywhere in the world. Take contact with them, and perhaps they could actually share their knowledge with you. That's my suggestion. I don't say that you have to do it as you must, but it's up to each and any of you. I mean, here's the thing I can say. For you, and as Masa Amani have actually faced the morality police who have ruined your life and all of it, and even those men who couldn't care less about your women, how you feel, how you're going through, and all of this kind of thing. Even if we could admire those men who maybe have support you being behind you and understand your feelings. They are the one who deserve to be lifted up, while those who haven't care less about you, who literally thinking that you shall only submit and do the housework and marry and giving birth, all of this kind of circle, they doesn't deserve respect at all, those men. They are the cause of the problem. But here's the thing, as I say, if you continue letting yourself suffer because of those kind of things, you lived long enough, like your own mother, like your own grandmother, just like your own great grandmother, great great grandmother, and the rest of them, of your ancestors or any of your bloodlines. There will never be any end. It will keep continue. And that's why I actually give you an information to always reach out and ask every woman around the world. But here's the thing, I want to give you something. When it comes to all this kind of beauty talk, please do not take it. No fashion talk at all. No body talk about how women should look like whatsoever. Don't take it. In order to you to live a normal life far away from the materialism, make sure that each and any of you women become biff. It doesn't matter if you maybe surpass men or be like men. When I say biff, it doesn't matter if you are chubby, it doesn't matter if you're uh, athletic, athletic. It doesn't matter if you're muscle donor, overweight, or whatsoever, but with muscles anyway. You can still reach the beauty, but make sure that you have your muscle and straight. That's the only thing you need, because that's exactly what all of those men had actually pushing you down for many years, to strip that kind of power you once had, as your ancestors had in the past, the hide and misses information as you needed so long. Yet someone actually burned that kind of information to make sure that you will never reach that kind of power. So yeah, that's the only thing I saying. Do not give up. Find a way to make sure that each and any of you women will be the strong, powerful woman as you were, not only with your mind or might. Make sure that you have the strength in your vein and so on. Build up the muscles. Become the big woman you once were. Do not become the small woman with no muscle power at all, because that was also the finer things the patriarchism existed, who literally were this kind of dominated alpha, as you will understand. Well, call me a weirdo, but that's exactly what I am. I am the weirdo who actually spreading that information I should have spread for a long time, but I was just a boy. I couldn't say much. And who will listen to a child who literally understood few things at least, even if I couldn't share, because I couldn't understand. I wasn't man enough to understand the part, except that I was the child who used to criticize all of this kind of wrongdoing between all genders. To be more certain to say, I was more of an equalist in the past, before I sunk down with my head and saw myself not a man enough. So I was kind of blind enough to swallow into this kind of circle how to be a man. But that's not important today, because being a man is not being biff or whatsoever, what shit we always hear, whether we are religious or not. or built by a family who got a lot of money or maybe doesn't have it. No. The point is that you always wear the logic and reason, and we all can fight together to become that kind of part. So please, I tell you, do not give up. Find a way to find a solution. Make sure that this kind of guy actually doesn't know exactly anything. And yeah, to sunk you down or make you less available to defend yourself. And that's the thing. Because, as we used to say, if the former women who once were a rebel, who fought against the patriarchy, well, you maybe can it too, but it's about your own morale, your own heart's desire. I mean, it's enough that you have lived with that kind of push down too long. It's up to push you up in the higher thing. The thing you really need is justice, rights, and equality. That's what you need the most. So don't let those morality police or the government take you down, or any religious leader saying, "You shall listen to the religion. We women don't have right." Blah 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 blah. It's not the truth. You shall actually keep fighting. So I'm telling you, my fellow sibling, fight for the right of your own heart's desire. Do not submit to whatsoever is the trash who once cost your life for long, long, long time. That's all I can say. So yeah, if you think I'm a weirdo, okay, I am a weirdo. I accept you no matter what. You can decide what you want, and I will only shut my mouth. But I want to give you also, and I will also apologize for. I was thinking I wanted to give you a YouTube clip about women's rights from the History Global, and perhaps you could take the part of what I maybe try to come with. What am I trying to say? Perhaps you will learn about women in the past. Perhaps you could get those resources outside from your nation to other nation as well. Give me a minute and you will maybe hear it. And also I want to apologize for the music in the background, which I'm not into, but I at least want to give you the information of what the person in it tried to say. I wanted to say it myself, but since the research I tried to go through on, well, okay, let us say I am not myself, and that's why I also wanted to give you that kind of the idea that I wanted to give you, even if I gave you what I could give you. But this is more important for you, and maybe you will gather it as you need. Give me a minute, give me a minute.
Women and girls are leaders, change makers, caretakers, and peacekeepers. But while they have an empowered role in our societies, to this day, women and girls are still forced to fight for their rights. How much progress have we achieved, and how much work remains? How can you carry on the fight for equal rights? women's struggle for equal rights is centuries old. But 1848 marked a watershed moment for women's rights with the Seneca Falls Convention, where women activists publicly petitioned for their civil, social, political, and religious rights. In 1893, New Zealand sent a message to other activists across the world that equal voting rights were achievable through advocacy. Entering the 20th century, women around the world are mobilizing in ever greater numbers to campaign for gender equality, just as women's role in the labor force is rapidly evolving by opening up options beyond caretaking roles. In 1945, the United Nations is formed in response to the destructive toll of 2 world wars, and Eleanor Roosevelt oversees the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. For all the world to hear, she and other advocates underline the place of women's rights within. This sets a foundation for women's rights norms and standards at the international level. In the subsequent decades, just as women are taking historic leadership positions in government, women activists at the grassroots level dovetail with the worldwide momentum by becoming powerful symbols of feminist resistance and social change. This momentum reaches a climax in 1995 when the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action presents a visionary global agenda for women and girls' rights. But in spite of all the progress, as we enter the 21st century, patriarchal stigmas persist and exemplary leaders arise to resist them. With the rise of the digital age, social media emerges as a crucial tool to galvanize populations in the fight against injustice. A single woman's voice is now louder than ever. Grassroots activists trigger social movements online and offline, from cities to villages, inspiring future generations of women and girl leaders. After relentless campaigning, these movements generate changes in policy that signal a true shift in international attitudes and practice towards equal rights. Where are we now? A quarter century after the Beijing Declaration, women and men must mobilize together to overcome the remaining obstacles to gender equality. They must fight for an end to gender-based violence, for access to healthcare, for equal pay, and for equal participation in political life. The ink isn't dry. Be a part of generation equality, and let us continue to write history together.
And that was it, folks. What I also, as you know, as I said, the violence is not off. It still exists. But in order to eliminate the violence, you all have to stand and eliminate the violence self. Meaning, even if that means you have to use the violence whatsoever. But that's not the seller point. The point is that you have to push down the toxic person and make him submit or give up. But as you know, it is different for sometimes. In the world I standing in, there have been violence after violence from those men who cause problem every day for other people, whether they are men, women, children, whatsoever. I mean, it could be bad people, no matter if they are toxic or what. It is so dangerous to live in a society like this. We could deal with a lot of people everywhere. But that's the thing. We have to make sure to get rid of those elites who control the money, for example. That's number one. Number two, make sure that each and anyone can live an equal life, that everybody can have a job and whatsoever, equal payments and everything. That's important for each and any of us and even find solution to get rid of this violent sense and make sure that we all can live in the global world without any killing, suffering, or whatsoever. No injustice anymore. And that's all I can say. By the way, I want to remind you all females, don't go after what the materialism is saying. What I'm saying is, you can choose to have always something with your muscles to do. You always be muscles. No matter if you are buff, no matter if you are chubby, no matter if you're athletic, whatsoever. But make sure that you have the muscles in your bone and vein and your arm, everywhere in your body. That's really important for you, that's all. And that's something we should remind all women, that whatever all those materialismen have done in the years is to manipulate the system to make sure that female always stays slim or average. Become buff, please. Do it for each and any woman, to show that it's nothing wrong to be a buff lady. Be buff, be chubby with muscles, or be athletic, or any other kind of muscle donor. So yeah, I telling you, keep fighting for the rights, keep fighting for your freedom, keep fighting for your justice, whatsoever you want to establish in the country. And perhaps each and any of your neighbor will maybe do the same thing. But I hope there will be never any kind of chaos anymore as we all living in. We shall actually neutralize the threat and take and make sure that we can establish the freedom. And remember, Allah will always be with you, all you females. Don't think about Quran, just think about yourself. That's the important. You are the important one. And I am pretty sure that God will still support you no matter what. It can't always be men. It should be all genders together. That's the thing. That's the truth. That's the reality. Don't let the ideology stop you from doing what you are supposed to do. What I'm saying is, make sure you can get rid of the injustice and make sure that you get the right. That's all I can say. And I hopefully you can honor Maza Amini, because her tragic death is not the first one. A lot of women have died before her and after her. So I say, please, do not give up. Don't care what the Quran may say now. Care about what you have to do. And all the women around have to follow your institution and your construction and anything to make sure that peace will always remain. I know you can, so please do not give up. Anyway, I want to thank you for taking a time and listening to this video. I know, I'm a bad YouTuber, but I try to do my best to become a great YouTuber in my life. So yeah, over again. I do my best as I can, and I haven't always been there, but I do my best to make sure that I can at least be a better human myself too. And since I work as a janitor, of course, I have to keep going no matter what. And yes, I ain't going to give up either. Anyway, I want to thank you all and have a nice day. Bye.